Welcome to TFN's Smart Trading Action Alert. I'm Laura Cadden. Since the announcement of the iPhone late last year, Apple stock has risen from $90 or less to over $130. Since the phone began selling on June 29th, the stock price has increased by over $12 a share. Nearly all of AT&T's 1,800 stores were sold out of iPhones in less than 3 days. First week sales, still considered a secret by Apple and AT&T, came in at anywhere from 310,000 to 700,000 units, twice the original analyst estimates. The retail success of the iPhone may be diverting our attention from a far more profitable and powerful technological trend: the integration of point-of-sale equipment with cell phone technology. An increasing number of cell phone operators is experimenting with electronic payments. In Britain, commuters can buy train tickets on the internet, which are delivered to their cell phones in the form of a barcode. In Japan, Docomo allows consumers to use their handsets as a credit card. A new generation of phones will link your credit or debit account as part of a joint initiative with phone operators, banks, and credit card companies. One of the principal backers of the new technology is MasterCard, who's testing its PayPass in the US and France. MasterCard also just signed a deal with Nokia and Samsung and linked up with 4 of the top 5 US banks to offer payments by mobile phone in 51,000 shops and restaurants. Using near-field communications technology for the purpose of electronically transferring funds is just the latest development in the ongoing elimination of cash from international commerce. More than 210 billion such transactions are already conducted each year in 79 countries. And by 2010, mobile payments are set to rise to $10 billion in total revenue. My guest today is Sam Hopkins, editor of Orbis Investor, who has followed this development for years. So Sam, you pride yourself on being able to identify the point in which a hot company intersects with a huge global trend. So what do you think the magnitude of this technology is going to be worldwide, and for example in China, where the burgeoning middle class might find this useful?
Well, what I see happening is that in China and in other countries, this technology and the market for it, the potential market, is already worth $17.8 trillion. That's according to our research. And by 2010 even, we can expect that number to double. It might sound like a lot, but if you think of the punch that these emerging markets pack, in China, for example, you've mentioned MasterCard, and they conducted a survey in 2005 that found that only 3 million credit cards were circulating in China that could be used internationally. Now, what's happening with China's middle class is that they're traveling a lot more and they're spending a lot more, and they want their credit cards to be able to be useful in all kinds of countries and all kinds of currencies, just like an American would like overseas. So by 2010, from that 3 million, they're expecting, MasterCard is expecting a jump to 75 million of those internationally usable credit cards. So that's the impact of this trend globally, really.
Wow. So, but yet in the United States, for example, still roughly half of all transactions are conducted in cash. Isn't that so?
That's true, but we can also say that half are not conducted with cash, and that demonstrates that we're at a tipping point, really, for this preference for non-cash transactions, and especially among younger, from the baby boomer generation on down, who have grown up with credit cards, are very familiar with the idea. They really have adopted this and are moving on even to the next technologies like you've been talking about.
And when you talk about globally as well, like Europe, I know you've traveled extensively to look into this. Do you think it'll also have that same sort of impact?
Certainly. I think in Eastern Europe, in South America, in the Middle East, I've been to all of these places, and in all of these places, commerce dictates that we have to have this ease of payments in order to stimulate, in order to keep this economic growth going. We've seen double-digit growth in places like China and Estonia, Latvia, where I've been. And for this to continue on, it's really important that the consumer demonstrate his preference for non-cash transactions.
Who do you consider to be the driving players behind this development?
Well, I think that governments, of course, industry organizations, they'll have a huge part to play as governments accept e-payments for things such as parking tickets, or in London with the congestion traffic charge, and even things like train tickets, as you've mentioned. But what it will ultimately come down to is the consumer and the habits that form. And in places like China or in Africa, where 85% of the businesses in sub-Saharan Africa use a mobile phone as their primary communication method, they're going to be able to leapfrog the existing technology in Western countries like the United States and not be tied down to the old linked and heavily modem-oriented transactions and communication systems that we have, and they can go straight to these mobile, very handy payment solutions.
So what do you think the best way would be for investors to cash in on the trend?
Well, that's a good question, because you've mentioned companies like MasterCard and Nokia that are very active in it. But I've actually found a company that's really in on the ground floor, especially in these emerging markets, and that is in a pole position really to capitalize on this trend.
What exactly do they do?
Well, they create the nuts and bolts of this non-cash transaction trend. They're involved with everything from the hardware that you use to swipe your card at checkout to the new technologies that in restaurants, for example, they would bring the credit card processing terminal to you so that it's not whisked away to some back room where you have to trust someone with your credit card. And even the more forward-thinking things like these mobile phone payments, they're on top of it.
Oh, that's amazing. So what is the price of the stock for this company, and what do you expect? Do they have an imminent catalyst that you foresee?
Yes, I do see an imminent catalyst. Right now they're trading around $30 in the $30 to $40 range. And their growth engine for the coming years is really going to be their emerging market strategy. And not only in America and in the more developed markets are they well established, but also they have representatives in over 100 countries. They're locking up agreements with standardization bodies in countries like China, where they're only setting for the first time even the magnetic strips that are on the back of the credit cards, and what it will mean to have a unique credit card number, and to make sure that these payments are secure. Obviously, we're concerned in the United States about secure transactions and not just the ability to conduct those transactions.
Absolutely.
And the Chinese and emerging market consumers in general want that security too, and that's going to enable their economic growth to continue for years to come. And this company's right on top of that trend.
Building those relationships.
Sure.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you.
We have linked to further information on Angel Publishing's Orbis Investor from our video viewer at taipanfinancialnews.com. For TFN Smart Trading Action Alert, I'm Laura Cadden.